So here are some topics that I wanted to touch on tonight. How to think about supplies, supply management when you travel, airplanes and TSA, time zone changes, cruises, kayaks, and Disneyland. Kayaks is kind of related to camping. So these are topics. This is all very conversational. You guys should not feel like you have to wait until the end to ask questions or to tell me that I'm wrong.
Basal rates.
Jump right in. Basal rates, we'll talk about that in time zones. Ed, are we good? Okay. First is this caution. Your diabetes may vary. Things that work for me don't necessarily work for other people. Disneyland has figured out that diabetes may vary, as we'll talk about later. But just, I wanted to emphasize this, right? Everyone's diabetes is different, and so it's not necessarily the case that what works for one person works for everyone else. Okay, so I want to start off with supplies. And the reason I wanted to start here is because I never really thought about type 1 and travel until Melissa. I was going on a work trip with Howard. I already had diabetes for 3 years. I was going on a trip, and Melissa said, how much supplies are you packing? I said, I'm going away for 5 days. I'm bringing 5 days of supplies. She said, what? You can't bring 5 days of supplies for a 5-day trip. You've got to bring twice as many as you think you're going to need, or 3 times as many as you think you're going to need. And it hadn't even dawned on me. Now, I was diagnosed at 27, so I never got to live with a mom when I had type 1. And, like, it's different. Moms and dads, like, you provide special value to your kids even though they might not like to tell you. I didn't get that. And so, you know, my diagnosis, I was on my own just from the beginning. So, after Melissa said that, I don't think I've told you this before, but I reflected on a trip I went on as a family when I was 7 to Hawaii. And we got stuck in what was the biggest hurricane that Hawaii had ever had in recorded history, Hurricane Iniki in 1991. And we were stuck on the island for 2 weeks with no power, no electricity, no access to medical supplies. I mean, you're just stuck on an island. And I hadn't thought about that before Melissa asked me, how much supplies are you taking? And ever since then, I'm like, totally different perspective on packing supplies for travel. Things can go wrong, right? They're not going to go wrong on every trip. They might only go wrong 1 out of every 10 or 20 trips. But that means that they're going to go wrong on 1 out of every 10 or 20 trips. And like, what are you going to do when that happens? So you can be prepared, so you might as well. Any questions about supplies before we, or thoughts? Do people have other experiences or lessons learned about managing supplies?
Do you have any experience of picking up supplies while traveling?
Yes. So in America, you're in relatively good shape. You know, especially in big cities. You can call your doctor and they can phone it in. Giving your doctor a heads up that you are traveling is probably a good idea. And finding out what your doctor's procedure is for after-hours calls and things like that. I had a situation in Boston. I went to Boston for, I think, a day sometime in the last year. And so, such an idiot, I'm only going for a day. I don't need to pack as many backup supplies as I normally would. And
Hey, how are you?
Good. And I completely ran out of insulin. So the insulin that I had on me went bad. And so I had no insulin. And I noticed this at 3 a.m. And so maybe it was 4 a.m. in Boston, 1 a.m. in the US. I felt terrible about waking my doctor up in California. I coincidentally had a doctor friend in Boston, called him, woke him up, and he called in a prescription for me. So if there are pharmacies around, you're pretty much cool. I met a colleague of Edward's the other day and heard a story from her that she went to a wedding. She has type 1. She went to a wedding, completely forgot fast-acting insulin, only brought Lantus. And this was in like Haiti or Jamaica or something like that. She just, for 2 days, rode on Lantus. She gave herself more Lantus than she normally does, and she ate lettuce for 2 days. I have another friend who went to Costa Rica for 6 weeks and ran out of Novolog, and his father had to fly Novolog to Costa Rica to him and then fly back. So the less preparation you do, the more discomfort or the more cost, right? Generally, problems are solvable, but they can be quite expensive or just pretty darn inconvenient and scary, because in those moments before you get it solved, you know, at 4 a.m. in Boston, my blood sugar's up at 350 and going up, and I know my insulin is just done for. In the moments before I know how I'm going to solve this problem, it's really uncomfortable. And you feel like you're relying on other people, and then you feel a little bit helpless, and you know, it gets, I think one thing we don't talk about enough in diabetes is the shame that's associated with it. And so it's a little bit shameful, which is not, I think, not the right reaction that we have, but I think that, you know, that happens.
Anywhere in the U.S., you can go to an emergency department and get insulin and syringes.
That's really nice.
So the other thing to think about, at least at Stanford Children's, you can get a letter that says you're traveling, especially if you're traveling out of the country, because medical licenses from the U.S. don't translate abroad. So they write out a letter that says, you know, what your diagnosis is, what your, what kind of things you need to carry, what kind of materials you need to have, and presumably that you could show up at a doctor or an ED in Hungary and be able to get what you need. Probably fairly easy if you had some connection back.
Yeah, I figured for this trip it's probably not a big deal, but
Yeah.
Another
Did you
thing
say any emergency room in America will give you insulin, just a shot of it or a bottle?
I think they'll give you just a shot and help you triage, you know, finding a pharmacy to fill or get in touch with a doctor. Yeah.
Another thing that reminds me of is a lot of times your insurance limits how much insulin you can get at any one time. If you tell them you're traveling, they make what's called a travel exception, and they'll actually increase your supply for your travel.
The other thing to know is if you're on a pump, many pump manufacturers will, or sales reps have loaner pumps. So you apply, you give the company a lot of heads up, and you ask for a loaner pump so that you can carry a backup pump with you. You should also, even if you're on a pump, you should also carry long-lasting insulin, and then, you know, gobs of Humalog or Novolog.
Yeah, so 2 great points. Carry long-lasting even if you're on a pump, and I always travel with 2 pumps. So I just assume one's going to go bad, and it has happened. It happened when I was camping, and I had an extra pump with me. So other things to...
The other good one is a Frio. Do you guys know about Frios? You can get them on Amazon. You can also get them on, they have their own website. It's not Frio.com, but it's something else similar. It uses evaporation to keep things cool, not cold. You immerse the inner part of the Frio, and they come in little, they come in pen size, they come in pump size, and it absorbs water, and then it uses evaporation to keep cool. And that's what we pack insulin in. So it doesn't have to be really refrigerator cold, but it needs to be under 86 degrees.
If you're going to Africa or India or Arizona, someplace where it's really hot, having one of these Frio packs is awesome. And also call ahead if you're traveling to places like that to make sure that they do have refrigerators. Sometimes there's none in the hotel room that you're staying in, but maybe there'll be a central place where they do have a refrigerator that you can stash your insulin in.
How do you pack your supplies?
My mother bought a gift for my fiance that was a makeup bag that, like it's a bag that it opens completely flat and then it just pulls with a drawstring closed. I just throw everything in there. If I'm going away for a while, I'll actually just take whole boxes of supplies and then I have full boxes of supplies. What do you guys do?
Have you ever had an issue where your supplies are packed and you're checked?
Yeah, let's get there. All right, yes.
Back to
Lisa.
the Frio.
Yeah.
A lot of the DME, the durable medical equipment companies, also carry them. So, like, rather than paying for them on Amazon, like we pay $2 for a Frio pack
Nice. That's
through our DME benefit when we get all of our tapes and our glucose tabs and everything.
great.
Bart, were you going to say something?
What's this about the, if you can get a seat, that's just, obviously you book 2 seats and.
Sometimes you book 2 seats and there are not 2 seats next to each other. It turns out the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has regulations about people with disabilities. And it turns out that people with endocrine disorders qualify for disability services and benefits on airplanes. One of those benefits is when you're booking your seats, if there aren't 2 seats together, as long as you give the airline more than 24-hour notice, they have to put you together. So call, more than 24 hours notice, they will move your seats and put you together. That's with somebody with type 1 diabetes and then their caretaker. So the next like 5 slides are actually all documented in this packet that was on the chairs. So a little personal story. I was at Las Vegas airport with my brother and his then pregnant wife, and they got a pre-board slip to get on the airplane. And I thought to myself, what the heck? She's pregnant, she gets to pre-board? I have diabetes, I should get to pre-board. And I was kind of joking. And then I started thinking, wait a second. There probably are things that I should have access to as someone with diabetes. I wonder what they are. And so I knew that people who are pregnant have some benefits. And so I started Googling the FAA and found the whole section of their, their requirements for people with disabilities. And I read through the whole thing, and I pulled out all of the snippets that could possibly apply to someone with type 1 diabetes. And I put them in this packet. And I'm going to go through the highlights now, and then the packet is a take-home for all of you. It includes, for each item, for each perk, if you will, a summary, and then the actual reference text to like the FAA's regulations. So if anyone should give you a hard time, you can just pull it out and refer to that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So first thing is seat assignments. If there aren't 2 seats next to each other, just call ahead and ask. Southwest is a little bit different because Southwest doesn't have seat assignments. So for Southwest, you pre-board. You just have to self-identify as a person with a disability, and then you and your caretaker get to pre-board. It turns out it's not just Southwest where people with disabilities can pre-board or people with type 1 diabetes can pre-board. Any airline, you can pre-board. And here are the reasons why. Now, I want to just reflect again on what I said at the beginning, which is that your diabetes may vary. When I tell some people about this who have type 1, they get offended. They say, I'm a normal person, I don't need a pre-board. Like, this is taking advantage of the system. Fair enough, to each their own. There are a few reasons why one might want to pre-board with type 1, so I just want to talk a little bit about those reasons that I've encountered. One reason is that the overhead storage can fill up. And sometimes your diabetes supplies need to go in the overhead storage, and then they end up taking your bag and putting it under the plane, which can be a bit of a hassle. You can avoid that hassle altogether by pre-boarding. The other thing is, I like to take out a bunch of different supplies and put them in the seat pocket in front of me. And I get a bit stressed when there is a line of people trying to get on the plane, and I'm trying to kind of get all of these things positioned where I want them to be. So by pre-boarding, I kind of avoid that line of people behind me clearly wanting to get through. So the official reason for being able to pre-board is if you require additional time, or if you require luggage stowage space immediately above you. Again, all you have to do is identify as a person with a disability. You don't have to say what the disability is. I've done this probably 50 times now, and I've only been asked once what my disability was. And that was from a person who clearly does not usually work the desk. They were in a bit of a scramble. I imagine it's for liability reasons that they don't ask you what your disability is, or that they don't know, but they're generally very accommodating.
Brandon, I'm sorry. Hudson has a question for you about what you're talking about airplanes and seating and diabetes. I
Oh,
don't know
sure.
what the question is.
So
That's
like,
what's your question?
so sometimes it's a little different to fly southwest because each Southwest flies the same plane, but it's kind of different with Indonesia, Garuda, Indonesia, or Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when I was on a plane once, I had my diabetes bag like on the seat below me, and that's kind of another way to do it.
I think that's a really
Very
great
good idea.
suggestion.
Very good idea. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Thanks,
can
Hudson.
put your diabetes bag on the seat floor in front of you.
Thanks,
Thanks
Brandon.
for sharing, man.
Brandon, do you know, I have been told, maybe Howard told me this, that your diabetes bag, your supply bag, your medical bag does not count. Oh, there you go.
You also are entitled to an additional carry-on. So the official language is any assistive device brought into the cabin by a qualified individual with a disability. We are, Type 1, are qualified individuals with disabilities. Any bag with that medical device in it does not count towards your carry-on. This has been a little contentious for me, in my personal experience. So they'll see me come on with 3 carry-on items. Generally, I've already had the conversation that I'm pre-boarding, so they are a little bit clued in. By the time you're like walking onto the plane, they are like really trained at saying, stop, go out, you're violating something. But with a little bit of talking, listen, this is my medical device bag, do you want to see inside of it? Usually they say no. Once or twice they've said yes. And that's basically how that goes. So you can bring an additional carry-on for medical devices. For medical
Or
devices.
supplies,
This did not work for me coming back from Costa Rica. Other countries don't care what the FAA says because they're different countries. So this only works when you're leaving and not when you're coming back.
I did it in Mexico last summer. I had 3 carry-ons, and in all of our flights, I was asked once, and I said it's a medical bag, and they said, okay.
For each of these slides about airplane stuff, there's a whole page dedicated to each of these topics. TSA cares. Oh, I should have taken off the Carb Diem logo for this one. TSA cares, or do they? So I read on Diabetes Mind, which is a great blog about life with diabetes, that TSA has a hotline, and you can call them 72 hours in advance, and they will have somebody escort you through the process, which seemed very cool to me. Now, at the time, I was, this was about 1.5 years ago, I had what was called an open APS rig, which is a homemade artificial pancreas system, and frankly, it looked like a bomb. It was like 3 different little computers and a big battery pack and wires coming out of it. And I was thinking, there's no way they're going to let me on a plane with this. So I figured I better call TSA Cares and give them a heads up. So I called TSA Cares, and they said, okay, it goes to like the national hub. They say, you'll get a call back from your local, SFO. Their TSA rep will call you back. So days go by, I don't hear back. I call again. Like, oh, they should really have called you back. They haven't. Gee, I don't know. What's their local phone number? Oh, we really can't give that out. What is the name of the person? All right, her name is Michelle. This is her phone number. So then I call the phone number. Oh, Michelle hasn't worked here in 6 months. Great. Okay, well, now that I'm talking to someone at SFO, listen, here's my situation. I've got a medical condition. I've got this device. It kind of looks like a bomb. Thought you should know about it. Would love for someone to meet me at the back of the line and make sure I get through okay. They said, all right, well, you don't have to worry about the device. I sent links so they can read about it. They were like, that's going to be fine. Don't worry about that. We'll have someone meet you there. Okay, where are they going to meet me when? They told me where and when to go. So I get there to the place where I'm supposed to go meet this person. Person's not there. So then I find a TSA agent and ask them, I'm supposed to meet this person. Oh, this person doesn't work today. What? I talked to them yesterday. They said they were going to meet me here. Nah, they don't work today. They did eventually bring another supervisor out, and he did walk me through, and he was very, very gracious. So it seems like my experience was, once I got there, they were pretty awesome. Before that, they were way less awesome. And then I was like, all right, I've got this medical device. It kind of looks like a bomb. And he's like, oh, don't worry, just put it through the x-ray. I was like, really? Yeah. You don't want to look at it? Okay. So put it through the x-ray, and that was it. So that's TSA Cares. You can decide. Pumps and x-rays. So I've never quite figured this out, what machines the pump can and can't go through. I've heard basically every variation of what it can and can't do. What I personally do is I don't put it through the x-ray, and I don't take it through this thing. I will take it through the metal detector, and I have an old Medtronic pump that seems to have very little to no metal in it, so it doesn't trigger any alarms. But I was told by a former engineer at Medtronic that I really shouldn't put it through the x-ray or through this machine. I said, okay. Now I've heard the opposite of that. I don't know. I think if you have a pump, talk to the pump manufacturer, see what they recommend. It confuses the heck out of TSA people. Sometimes I'm like, oh, here, can you hold this while I go through? Sometimes I'm like, oh, no, I can't touch that. Other times they'll take it. But has anyone heard anything else about different pumps and what can go through metal detectors or x-rays or?
Well, so the Omnipod, you can't take off.
It's true, can't take that off.
And it goes through the x-rays and the metal detectors, no problem. And it goes through the baggage scanner, the box of them, no problem. Mm-hmm. Or at least no problem so far.
No problem that
Yep.
no problem that we know about.
Whether it can go through or cannot go through, it can screw up your day if it start malfunction. So we always are on the side of it. We don't have to let it go through, and that ends the 1 hour wait in a Boston airport. No, we are not going to go through because that 1 hour is still worth waiting as long as the pump is working still reliably through the airplane, through the trip.
Right. And what pump were you guys using?
Tandem.
So you had a tandem pump, and you didn't want it to go through the x-ray machine, and you didn't want it to go through the metal detector, and you didn't want it to go through this thing. So you're basically like, you're not touching this pump.
Right.
That would seem to be a good reason to call TSA Cares before you get there. That's an interesting problem. My experience at Boston was, I think Melissa might have alluded to this earlier, I had packed all of my diabetes equipment. I was going from Boston to Vienna. I had packed all of it in my luggage and put it under the plane. And then I went through the TSA security shenanigans. They were like, we're gonna pat you down. I was like, fine. So they do you have anything? I ask the same questions. They're really good about asking the same questions. Do you have any sensitive areas? So I've got my insulin pump here, and I've got my, glucose monitor here, and you're not going to kill me by touching them, but just be careful. And this guy ripped my infusion site out accidentally. I was like, no. And to make matters worse, I had checked all of my diabetes supplies under the plane. So I had to go, after waiting in line, I had to go back out, go to the counter, explain what had happened. Someone had to go fetch my baggage, bring it back in front. Fortunately, that actually went pretty quickly. It was 10 minutes or less, and they had my bags back to me. Then I put on a new infusion site and went through security again. I was not happy. And these are just the things that happen. And so part of it is just knowing that it's not going to happen every time. 1 out of every 5 times, 1 out of every 10 times, they happen. And it's a bummer. And there's other emotions that get involved. There's definitely protective dad mode that I've heard about. This was actually just a few weeks ago. I was getting to the front of the security line, and the TSA agent was dealing with someone who had a disability, and I guess they didn't say the right thing. And so the security agent goes up in front of everybody and says, if you have a medical disability, please announce it before you go through. And I said, I have a disability. She was like, oh, really? I said, yeah. And then she turns to the woman who she'd been helping and said, this gentleman is making fun of your condition.
Oh, no.
And I was like, ma'am, I really have a disability. I pull out my insulin pump. I'm like, I'm connected to all these devices. What are you doing? And she said, he's not stopping.
Really?
So I go through, and man, am I living. And I tried to talk to her in person, but she actually went around to the front of the security line where I could no longer go, to the other side, to avoid me. And so then I said, who's her supervisor? And they pointed me to the supervisor desk. And the supervisors are very, in my experience, they've been pretty responsive. And so I went and I explained what happened, and they were pretty, not happy on my behalf. And hopefully they addressed it. I think for me as a 33-year-old male who I don't look like I have a disability, I think there is a little bit of I don't know, some element of disbelief. And so it happens. It's just one of these things where people are sometimes harder to deal with than other times. So TSA cares, or do they?
And also, disability. There's generally people have some preconceived notion about what disability is, and they don't really see, unless you are exposed to a T1D and what kind of issues that come with it, you really think you have your own version of disability. Oh, you're not limping. You are not disabled. Right?
Exactly. And it's until the moment that they rip out your infusion site and feel real bad. That's when they realize you have a disability. Cruise lines.
Well, can I, before we move on to cruise
Yeah.
lines?
Mm-hmm.
So, what did you just say about pumps, insulin, deceivers? What is the deal with what they can go through?
So that's a great question. What can they go
You
through?
kind of said, well, I do this and I do that. What is the recommendation? Is it just put everything through the x-ray and not worry about it?
So my recommendation is, well, I guess this is more of a cop-out than a recommendation. That is really a device-by-device situation. And you should talk to your device manufacturer, see what they recommend. Some things might void warranties, some things might not. I don't have the checklist of for this device and this airport screening technology, what can you do? I think that the last time I checked on this, it was less than helpful.
Yeah.
I think it said,
That's
yeah,
fine.
don't put it through anything. We're not really sure. So it's something that you've got to handle, I think, with the device company. And one thing that we said earlier that you might not have been here for is bring an extra, if you're traveling, you can get a loaner pump. Bring an extra pump with you. In case something does happen to one of them, you've got a backup. And so I think that's my real suggestion, is have a backup.
But what do you do with that? You put that in your baggage, and
I-
that baggage actually goes through X-ray.
So actually, that's a good question. So yeah, I put it in my luggage, or I put it in my carry-on, and I have put my Omnipod through the X-ray 1,000 times, and it's been fine. And I've put my Medtronic pump through the metal detector 1,000 times, and it's been fine. I've never gone through this thing.
That's my understanding, that's the one you don't want to go
No.
through, because it's magnets.
So yeah, that is my takeaway as well. My personal thing, I never go through this guy. I also have TSA pre-check, which is pretty awesome because they'll let you keep your shoes on. They don't make you unpack everything out of your bag, and you're going through the metal detector anyway. You don't go through this thing. That's like the real benefit for someone with type 1 for TSA pre-check, is you're automatically routed into the metal detector, not into this thing. So when they try to route you into this thing, then you say, oh, I can't go through that thing, and then you do the pat down. With the metal detector, you don't have to get the pat down. I am like very careful to like hide this cord, and because they say, oh, is there anything in your pockets? There's an insulin pump in your pocket, and they say, is there anything in your pockets? The answer is no, there's nothing in my pocket. If they see it, they're gonna be like, there's something in your pocket, we need to pat you down. That's only happened to me once. Usually they don't see it, it doesn't set off the metal detector. That's a Medtronic pump. A tandem pump probably will set off the metal detector. So, again, it's a bit device specific, but one of the things I've learned to try to avoid is the pat down. Anything I can do to avoid the pat down, it's a waste of time, it's a little bit demoralizing, and man, when they rip out your infusion site, it's the worst.
She got a question.
No, I was gonna make a comment. We only use TSA Cares once, so that's my type 1 back there. So he was 3.5 when we used them, and we're actually using them again next week. You reminded me today, so thank you. But we had a fantastic experience. They actually met us at the curb. They helped. We had a letter from our endocrinologist saying that he's got food allergies and type 1, so that we had to bring a cooler full of food as well. Nobody questioned anything. They opened a separate security line for us, didn't make us stand in line, took us to a private room, went through all of our stuff in a private, quiet space, asked before. I mean, they were super respectful and helped us get to the gate with all of our stuff.
That's awesome.
So we had maybe that's because I had a kid in the mix, but it was a fantastic experience.
Does anyone else travel with a letter from their doctor? Have you guys ever had to show it? Or have you ever had the opportunity to?
I was bringing juice in Mexico last summer, and they were like, you can't take this. And I was like, it says so on the letter. I said, oh, okay, go ahead. So, and in Sweden, I had the same letter, and they were like, no, you can't bring the juice. And I said, well, actually, she needs some juice. And so they made me open each bottle of juice and take a sip of each one.
See, I have a different thing. I have a ICD myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I travel to India. I travel several times. The worst thing is, there's no problem. But when I go from that Singapore to the other leg, it's a pacemaker. They shout like, it's so embarrassing. It feels so bad. They shout at people, and everybody will turn around and look at you like as if you're in a different that's an awkward moment.
I appreciate the empathy. Yeah.
So Katie wore a tandem pump for a year or so, and it set off every metal detector. And when she was 12 and under, they would not do pat downs on her. They would ask us which one of us wanted to take a pat down. So, do you remember that? I mean, that, and it tends to be in little tiny airports like Kauai Howard got pat down in Kauai. I got pat down in someplace in Montana.
I got pat down in San Jose.
Oh my God.
But now Katie takes the pat down. At 17.
She also now gets TSA pre, even though she's
Routinely,
not actually signed
yeah.
up.
She always gets
Okay,
TSA
figured
free.
it out.
Too. I might do that.
It's because they have noted on your record somewhere that you have a medical disability, you've been through a number of times,
Oh,
and
they
they've
know
done.
though. Oh, I know because I say I haven't.
That's because TSA cares.
Yeah. Clearly.
That's a good one.
So I will add one quick anecdote. 9 out of 10 times it's like you described. We did once, actually I want to say twice, we've had a situation where the TSA agent has diabetes. And I vividly remember this one guy, he's like, oh, is that a Medtronic? I got one of those. And he lifts up his shirt and shows his infusion site. It was nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, so having a doctor's note with you, I've never personally done that. I know a lot of folks do. Melissa also brought up the exception for drinks. So apparently, if you have a disability, if you have type 1 diabetes in particular, you can bring liquids through in a clear bottle. This might also qualify you for a special pat down. So just know that's what you're risking.
So they always, so that there's, I bring 8-ounce bottles of juice, and you can see through them. They don't like the cans, they don't like the juice boxes, but I like the ones with the screw top, so you can use it multiple times. And there's some machine they can put it in and I guess figure out the density of the liquid inside, and so then they can know that it's safe. And really Sweden is the only place I had trouble, and we've traveled all over the world.
So one thing that if you haven't experienced it yet, you will probably experience it in the future is what's pretty typical is they have you take out your pump, rub it on your hands, and then show your hands and they swab your hands.
Yeah.
And they stick the swab in the machine and it verifies that.
Well, they do that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, TSA, they're not bad, but it's never consistent. That's,
There's
if I
a lot
went
of
to the airport,
inconsistency. Yeah.
but you go to San Jose and it's never the same way twice. You go anywhere you go. And that's what I don't understand.
They have 100% turnover in their workforce.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But there, again, when you tell somebody that you have type 1, they should go find somebody that knows about that. You know, but I mean, they've been befuddled. You know, oh, got to call somebody. You know, we're on the phone for 10 minutes trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the real downside of TSA.
Lots of extra time.
Oh yeah.
Okay. What time should we start there next? Cruise lines. So, I've only been on one cruise ever. It was 2 years ago. I had been dating my now fiance for 6 months. This was the first time I was meeting her parents. They were taking us on a cruise. I found out that this was actually when I was traveling with this homemade artificial pancreas rig, and it was a hacked together device. So it would die a couple times a day, and I'd have to get into it through Wi-Fi. So I needed Wi-Fi on the cruise. Now other people need Wi-Fi on the cruise if they're on a Dexcom share system, and mom and dad want to follow your kid's Dexcom. And Wi-Fi on a cruise is super expensive. So if you call ahead and let them know that you have diabetes and that you need it for a medical device, they will give you free Wi-Fi. So that's what's great. What I wasn't anticipating is that they needed their doctor to come inspect my medical devices before I got on the boat. But it's worse than that. Somehow they let me onto the boat. But when my girlfriend's, now fiance, when her parents tried to get on the boat, they stopped them. They said, "You can't get on the boat. We need to see your medical devices." "We don't have medical devices." "Are you Brandon Arbiter?" "Nope." "But we know him." "Well, he can't get on the boat until we see his medical devices." I had to come off the boat And so I'm thinking, all right, no big deal. I'll come with the boat. I'll show them the medical devices. We'll go back on. No, the doctor was quite busy. It took 3 hours of us waiting to get on the boat for the doctor to come down. Comes down, he looks at it, he asks me what it does. I told him, he's like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, yes, very cool. Let me on. Now at this point, my blood sugar, I don't remember if it had like skyrocketed from the stress or like gone low from whatever, but my blood sugar was like a disaster after 3 hours of waiting or like, you know, with frustration. So that happened. I had to be interviewed by the one ship doctor who was very busy. So that was my personal cruise line experience. Once I was on the cruise, I was kind of, you know, on my own and it was fine. There was this story recently that Beyond Type 1 picked up. They're, if you're not familiar with Beyond Type 1, they're a kind of a social media Type 1 advocacy group. They do a lot of emails and Twitter posts and things like that. And there was a child going on a Disney cruise, and the parents had called the Disney cruise ahead of time, let them know, I've got a kid with Type 1, and these are the restrictions, and yada yada. And anyway, he went into one of the kids' activities, and he had, I don't know if it was I think it was Skittles with him. And the activity leaders saw the Skittles and said, you can't have Skittles in this room, someone might be allergic to them. And so he said, well, but I have diabetes, I need to have these with me in case my blood sugar goes low. And the activity leader said, you can either put those back in your room and come back, or you just have to leave. There was no like, well, we have apple juice here for you, so why don't you put those in your room, we've got apple juice, we'll take care of you. That didn't happen. It was just, get rid of those Skittles or you can't participate in the activity. Kid was pretty upset. Mom and Dad got pretty upset. Seems like they handle things in the right way, but these are the kinds of things that can happen, right? That you need to be prepared for, that we need to be prepared for as people living with diabetes or people caring for people with diabetes, because most people, you know, most people don't get it. So that's cruise lines. Time changes. All right, so who here has a basal rate? So this is really tricky, and here's what Dr. Adi has told me, which seems like a reasonable approach. If you are traveling across time zones, change the time on your pump 1 hour per day, because it takes your body clock about 1 day to acclimate 1 hour. Do I think that works? No. I think that you got to pay attention to what's happening overnight, because that's when things can, that's when people are sleeping. If, you know, night number one, maybe wake up a little bit more often and see if there's low blood sugars. If there are, ease up on the overnight basal rate. Now, you might want to still do what Saleh says. I do think it's in general the right direction to do is adjust by 1 hour on your pump clock per day, or per hour of time zone change. 1 hour a day, adjust it 1 hour each day, until you have gotten to the time zone that you are in. I think that is reasonable, but also pay extra attention at night that you're not going really low or going really high. Because sometimes things just get super wonky. And I'm a data nerd, and I have traveled a lot, and I've looked at the data a lot, and I've not figured out a good system other than, all right, my blood sugars are going down to 43 nights in a row. I've clearly got to just lay off my basal rate overnight for a couple more days.
So have you ever, since you travel a lot, have you ever like just not done anything? Just left it in California time, because this is where you live, right? Just left it in California time?
Yes, I have done that, and
Did it work?
no,
Because where were you when it didn't work?
Italy, France, Europe,
Okay,
It's too
basically.
much.
That's a big time.
So
Big time.
we've done, like, you know, heading to the East Coast for a long weekend. We're gonna be staying up late, we're gonna be sleeping in the morning, we leave it on California time. Just because it pretty much washes, you know, there's no difference. I'm trying to remember what we did for South Africa. You gotta worry about how long you're on the plane, the amount of downtime on the plane.
I only care about myself, so I'm flying to the East Coast.
Okay, so for one thing, you have to think about the plane ride. Your basal rate should change because you're gonna be sedentary for 6 hours. And that changes the way, or your insulin needs. So you need to think about a temp basal for while you're on the plane. And you're eating at weird times and that kind of thing. I think 3 hours is not a big deal. What do you think? I would change.
I think, like you said, if you know mostly, it's all about your body clock, right? It's all about your metabolism and what time your body thinks it is, and you kind of want to match that. So.
Well, that's what I was kind of wondering, because really, time is just made up anyway.
Right.
So your body, you have already learned, no matter where you are in the world, you have already learned what your body needs at a certain time, but the time is made up. So if you live in California all the time and you've got your basal rates down perfect, then it doesn't really matter where you are, nothing's going to change because time is made up.
Except you have different basal rates when you're awake versus when you're asleep. And for kids, they often do half corrections programmed into a pump overnight. So you don't want to do half corrections all day, you'd be chasing highs all day. So if you were flying to Europe, I would guess, I think we would do a more...
No, you don't really change your, okay, well you do. I mean,
we would change, correction factors are based on time in a pump. You say insulin sensitivity is this at this time. So I would change the time on the pump to reflect so that you would benefit from those time, or those insulin sensitivity changes.
no, but it wouldn't change. That's what I'm guessing.
So
I'm guessing that because the sensitivity that you have at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning is going to be the same sensitivity that you have no matter where you are,
So the conventional.
But I don't know about Europe, but at least on the East Coast.
The conventional thinking is that your body clock is based on kind of when you sleep and when you wake up, and that's like the dawn phenomenon happens when you wake up. You get a bunch of glycogen gets released and your blood sugars go up, and that's kind of just the way your body clock works. And when you go to a new time zone and you're going to sleep 3 hours later, 3 hours earlier, your body clock starts to adjust and gets a little bit just off from its normal. Because if you take it out to the extreme, if you're in New York for a year, you're going to be on a whole new body clock that's 3 hours later, right? So pay attention, just see what's happening at night. If you are going low after dinner 2 nights in a row, just lay off. As Melissa said, it's not just your basal rate, it's your carb ratios are set to your pump's timer, and your sensitivity factor is set to your pump as well, so like to the time of day. So if you're not adjusting the time on your pump, then you might be eating dinner in New York using your insulin to carb ratio from lunchtime, and you might be correcting after dinner with your correction factor that you usually use before dinner. And so you've got, when all of those factors come together with different insulin to carb ratio, different insulin sensitivity factor, and different basal rates, it doesn't take a lot of extra insulin to make you go low, right, or to make any of us go low.
See, I'm just wondering, like, if your biological body knows that you're doing things differently. So if that's a possibility, if your biological body can tell that you're, eating breakfast 3 hours earlier or waking up 3 hours earlier or later or whatever it is, then does it adjust, or does it just stay the same because because in actuality, you have set your basal rate so that your basal rate, if it's perfect, will be a straight line, on your CGM, for 24 hours a day without eating, without any activity or that sort of thing. So in actuality, it's only a matter of, does your body recognize that you're in a different time zone, or does it always just stay the same no matter where you are?
Yeah.
Anybody have a theory on that?
Yeah, so what I was going to say on that, with my son, during the school year, he wakes up at what my parents would call a reasonable time. I still haven't adjusted to it. And in the summer, he wakes up at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So we actually have to adjust basal rates and everything based on that, because he's waking up 3 hours later than normal and staying up God only knows how much later than normal. So that's what's actually adjusting his sensitivity, is when he goes to sleep and when he wakes up. So when we go visit Florida, within a day or so, he's on a different, waking up and going to sleep if you compare it to California time. And that's what we run into. That's why we end up changing the time on the pump, is because his sensitivity changes based on when he wakes up and goes to sleep.
Yes.
So that's why it helps us to change the time on the pump.
Because I went to Rhode Island, and that's where we're going to go again last year, and I did change my time, and it just was a mess the whole damn time.
Well, then don't do it.
Yeah. So that's what I'm gonna. But I just wanted to see what other people had experienced, and because if you go online and type it in, it's hard to find stuff. It's mainly they talk about Europe, and so I just wanted to see what y'all had to say about that.
My personal experience is that no matter whose advice I follow, when I travel, my blood sugars are totally messed up.
And part of it is just the food.
Yeah.
You're also eating different food.
You're
Yeah,
eating different food, and it's all different. But yes, your body does change based on time, because like Edward said, your sensitivity is determined by when you wake up, and that's really what affects your insulin sensitivity. So it does shift by where you are and what time you're waking up. It might take a few days, like Brandon said, it'll take a few days for your body to adjust to different time zones. It definitely changes, and Dr. Adi always says that in the summer you need to shift your times on your pump and all your basal rates to vacation time, even if you're staying in the same time zone, because the kids shift their whole schedule 3 hours. So if they wake up at 10 and have breakfast at 10:30, they may be getting a lower insulin to carb ratio, because we drop it during the school year for snack, because we don't want them to go low at snack time and at school. But really they need their breakfast insulin to carb ratio, the 7 a.m. basal rates.
Their pump 3 hours.
So yeah, we just need to either change the time on the pump or shift everything 3 hours for vacation time. So it's like they're in a different time zone, even though they're staying in California. So you need to adjust for that.
So I'm flying from here to Tahiti next week.
Taking me with you?
I'm like, I'll carry your medical supplies.
A lot of volunteers here.
Yeah, so anyway, I think it's about 8 hours of time zone changes, something like that. I think it's on the other side of the date line, I'm not sure. So what do I do? When I get there, because we're going to be getting up and diving, we get there like 5 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to go and probably sleep right away. And then we're going to be diving every day, almost every day.
Right.
So because we're going to be getting up at 7 o'clock every morning, because that's when they're going to come and pick us up or have breakfast, and do I just immediately change it to that time? Or should I mean, what are we saying here? I'm sorry, but I hear you talking, but I'm not getting any advice.
So let me once again provide the cop-out, which is your diabetes may vary. I've heard Dr. Adi say change by 1 hour per day. I've also heard him say just go to a lower flat basal all day, and then try to adjust with corrections. But I think the most important thing to do, even though I can get up here and talk about my experience traveling with type 1, I think the best thing you can do is talk to your doctor about it before you guys travel, and get suggestions from your doctor.
So you guys are talking about pumps. We are still in the pen.
Right.
So what do we do? Because Asia is like totally 11.5, 12 hours ahead of time, right? So what do we do?
So, I should have said this at the beginning. I am not a doctor.
No, I'm not going to hold you up for that.
No, no. That's a great thing to talk to your care team about.
So you want to take the Atlantis around the same time every day, but if you're going to go to India for 6 weeks or something like that, you might talk to the doctor about how to shift it so that it's at a convenient time. But you got to be careful that you don't overlap the 24-hour doses.
You think it's still, is it better to, I can put him on pump, we have one month left now, I can try to put him on pump. Do you think putting in pump would be better than, right?
A month before you go on a big trip?
I would make
do
it,
that.
for one thing, you may not be able to get it through your insurance or your doctor's office in a month.
I see.
I know that UCSF and Stanford both require that you take a pump class. So if you haven't taken the
I
pump,
did already.
okay, that's good. And then your insurance it's often a month for the insurance to fulfill the order. And then what they require is a 3-day insulin or saline trial with the new pump.
Oh, okay.
And then you get insulin after that, so it's
It looks like it's not going to happen.
Get the pump while you're in India, it's much easier.
Thank you.
We got our pump.
Hudson's been waiting very patiently to ask you a diabetes
Hudson, do you have a question?
Yeah.
You
can
want to
just
come
take
up
your
here and
buddy.
ask?
Go sit here, Hudson.
Thanks.
Good. I'll take that.
He's gonna bring his paper. Oh, no,
Remember Miss Melissa?
So why don't you just increase your basal rate to just for 10 minutes and then just change it?
I think sometimes having temp basals for a little bit of time is a really good idea.
Yeah.
And
I was thinking that.
I think it just depends on the situation and what you had for dinner.
Yeah. Me too.
Thanks, good job.
I know, but I still eat really big dinner.
Enjoy childhood. All right, anything else on, any other questions or experiences about time changes? Tomorrow.
Just a tip, when you change your time on your pump, change your time on your meter and your Dexcom so that they're all linked. I know Tidepool can handle some of this, but especially if you have a linked meter, make sure you change your time on all your devices so you don't get crazy data.
Yeah, well, so to add a little bit of craziness to it, if you're using a Dexcom receiver and you're doing the thing where you change your pump by 1 hour a day, you can't change them both to the right time. You basically would have to change your Dexcom receiver 1 hour at a time. So it is a good thing to pay attention to what time do all of your devices say. If you are someone who looks at the data, pay even more attention to, because if you're like, oh, I really want to see what happened after my trip, and then you go home and upload and all of your devices are at different times, then you're not going to be able to learn anything about the trip. Now, we'll say Tidepool does have a smart algorithm that works in the background that can piece together all of the time changes and actually wrap them so that they line up correctly. That doesn't work with meters, that only works for your pump and CGM. But if you use Tidepool, you'll have that feature. Plugged. Okay, next topic. Kayaks. If you're gonna go kayaking, you should just assume whatever you have in the kayak is going to end up in the water. I learned this lesson because I was going to go kayaking with orcas last summer, and 3 weeks before I did, a friend of mine went on a kayaking trip, and she has type 1, and she came back from her long weekend to tell Howard and me about how she capsized her kayak and had her pump in it, and everything in her kayak ended up in the water. Amazingly, her pump survived. She was very surprised by that. We were also surprised. This was not a waterproof pump. But it made me think real hard about what going kayaking with orcas was going to be like. And so I bought waterproofing stuff. And whenever I was in the kayak, my Medtronic stuff, which is not waterproof, went into 2 different waterproof sacks, like one inside another. And then I wore an Omnipod for a basal rate, and then took the Omnipod controller and put that in a watertight or a water protected case. So if you're going to go kayaking, just assume you're going to get wet. Camping, it can rain. So we were while we were kayaking with orcas, amazingly it got very clear and beautiful whenever we were in the kayaks. But when we were camping at night, it was raining. So the devices stayed either in the tent or in the waterproofing stuff. So just, be prepared for water. Any questions about kayaking or swimming? Yes, that's it.
If you go kayaking, you probably want to keep your stuff on land because you probably won't have any place to put it.
That is the best way to keep it dry.
Yeah.
Keep
Probably
it on
want
land.
to leave it with your friend.
That's a great idea. If you have a friend who's staying back on land, just leave your stuff with the friend that you trust.
But that might be a little problem.
If you want to bull us, right?
Yeah, like if there's like a low blood sugar or something, there wouldn't be any way to get it. Unless kayak back really fast.
So bring your glucose tabs with you. Yeah, actually, that's important.
Yeah,
Bring your glucose tabs with you.
Glucose tabs are waterproof.
That's true, yeah.
Like low treatments are waterproof.
A lot of them are.
Yeah.
So this next topic, I have more questions about than answers, and I'm hoping you guys can teach me about it. Is that me? Yep. I have diabetes. So I'm just going to give myself a little correction here. Okay. So Disneyland. I went to Disneyland for the first time in 20 years a couple weekends ago. And I had heard that as someone with diabetes, there are benefits that you can get. And I've also heard that that's no longer true. And so I was curious, knowing that I had this talk coming up, I was curious to test it out and see what happens. And I am more confused now than when I went to Disneyland. So I went and asked what to do, and they said, go to City Hall. So yes, Disneyland has its own City Hall. And so I went into City Hall and talked to a cast member, that's what they call their employees, is cast members, and told them that I have type 1 diabetes, and sometimes I've got to check my blood sugar, which has some blood involved. I might have to change an infusion site, which I probably wouldn't want to do standing in a line. What can I do? I'm taking care of my nephews who are 3 years old. And the cast member said to me, are they in a stroller? And I said, yes. And he said, okay, here's what you're going to do. I'm going to give you this red sticker for the stroller. And when you get to the ride that you want to go on, just go up to the exit and show them the red stroller pass. And then they will just say, okay, it's an hour-long line. They'll scan your ticket and they'll say, come back in an hour. And then you don't have to wait in line. You can go do whatever. You can't go on any other rides, but you don't have to wait in the line. So I said, awesome. And about 20 minutes later, it dawned on me, well, what if I come back without 2 kids in a stroller? What did the 2 kids in the stroller even have to do with this? Does everyone in the stroller get this? And so at the end of the day, I went back to City Hall to find out what happens if I don't have the stroller. And what they said was, come back next time, and we'll have another conversation and find out how to best accommodate you. And I was like, well, what am I going to tell people in the talk? And that they said they should come talk to a cast member in City Hall, and we'll find out what best accommodates them. So all these little circles were the rides that have disability access that I was able to go and show them the red stroller pass. And there were many other people with strollers who did not have the stroller pass. So there was some magic potion to having both a stroller and a person with a disability. But I don't know, I was a little, does anyone else have Disneyland experiences to share?
Not related to the topic.
So it used to be that anyone with diabetes could get a disability pass. And that's changed both because, my understanding, because people have sort of abused that system. And coincident with that is they've come up with a very great, what's the system, the fast pass or fast track or whatever, where you can actually, at least at Disney World, you can sign up for your time on a certain ride.
And you pay more.
You can there. So, how long ago was it that we were at Friends for Life?
2014,
2 years ago.
I think.
How long?
I think it was 14.
So several years ago, we were in Florida and we went to Disney World, and we had 2 kids with type 1 with us. And we learned that you could tag team their passes. I heard that Disneyland is more stringent with the rules than Disney World. And I know that the Weisses, Megan Weiss, their little girl is 3. She would be in the stroller group, and they get passes. So I think at Disneyland. So I think it does have to do with the fact that you have a little kid with you. They probably would not accommodate you. They would think that you would be able to deal with your disability using these fast passes.
Can't imagine why they would think that. And there were only 4 or 5 rides with fast passes, so it's these ones with the little red marks, which there weren't very many of them. But anyway,
I forgot about the Fast Pass. At Disney World, there are more places that you can use the Fast Pass. And I assume they use the same electronic bracelets at Disneyland.
Those were just coming into use.
Okay, yeah, they used that the last time we went to Florida. And it was great. We actually got Fast Passes because they kept screwing up things, and so we, somebody would go, here's some Fast Passes, get out there. So every day we had some, and they put them on the electronic one, so it is tied to the bracelet, but you can move that there.
Yeah, so when we had Tia with us, we had Tia's disability, we used regular Fast Pass, and we had Katie's, so we were working the system.
Yeah.
Well, there's at least 2 Facebook support groups for like diabetes and Disneyland and special needs at Disneyland, like where you can join and learn how those things work. Yeah.
I was very curious about that. I was trying to figure out what's the algorithm to the questions they ask, and that maybe the Facebook groups know more. Yes, Hudson.
Sometimes, like, if you have diabetes and you meet Mickey Mouse and you hug him, it might affect your pod or something.
Your Omnipod?
Yeah.
Especially, I hear, if you're wearing one of those wristbands, then there can be some actual interference between the wristbands and your Omnipod.
Yeah.
I have definitely heard that.
Really?
Yes. That is a real thing.
Like the ride wristband?
Yeah, the ride wristbands, the new electronic wristbands at Disneyland actually interfere with the Omnipod signal.
Wow.
And so
Great to
you
know.
might have some trouble bolusing.
I wonder if Insulet
Yeah, I
knows
do
that.
that. I am very smart.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll ask Frank next week.
Yeah, thank you, Hudson. I think that is it. Those are all of the topics that we have. So, are there any other questions about travel or things that people want to talk about? Yes, Edward?
Just a general tip that we sort of touched on. There's the mechanics of travel with time zones and carrying extra stuff. But as you were saying, Tamara, usually when you're traveling, you're doing things that you don't normally do. So you're waking up early to go scuba diving with a lot of extra energy involved, or you're horseback riding, or you're sleeping in, or you're eating foods that you haven't eaten before. So check early and check often. It's just like boating. because it's going to be very, very different than what it is when you're at home.
You want to
Take lots of sensors.
you want to share the advice that one of the former Medtronic engineers gave us having to do with cabin pressure and infusion sites?
Sure. So there is apparently, as you take off in an airplane and land, the cabin pressure changes. This can actually have a measurable impact on the pressure inside of your insulin pump that could actually push extra insulin into you. So it was recommended that during takeoff and landing, if you're on a tubed insulin pump, to unplug it so that you don't get the effect of extra insulin. I have traveled many, many, many times and have never noticed going low after a takeoff or landing, but someone did say this. There's actually a paper written about it, and I read the paper, and it seems very scientific. So
It's actually been referred to as the baggage, what's it called?
Carousel?
Baggage carousel lows. People go to pick up their baggage and they're low, and it's as a result of getting that insulin at landing.
Oh,
So I recently saw someone like on Facebook, you know, oh, I just landed and I'm low, and someone else said, oh, it's the baggage claim low.
the baggage claim low
Is
yeah.
how they refer to it. So I've heard of it a couple times.
I
And
have a question.
Should we let Tamar
I
finish
should
talking,
wait.
and then I'll call on you? Is that okay?
So we never remember to do it, but it does happen. And actually with the 670G, I think it's just in the investigational ones. I think they're fixing it for the real ones. And I don't know, have you flown yet with your 670G?
Oh, yeah.
We've had it
But we
where...
didn't have that happen.
Oh, you didn't have that happen.
The button area?
It gets like sucked in during landing, and like all you have to do is open the battery compartment, and it like releases the pressure. But something happens again from the pressure during landing where
Well,
it
the buttons don't work.
well it just gets sucked in and then nothing
Yeah,
works.
and you can't turn off the alarm.
Well, if
You
you
start
wait
freaking
too
out.
long, it'll start alarming.
Yeah.
But for us, it never got to the alarm part. But yeah, it can just get sucked in. But I think it's only on the investigational devices.
Interesting. Hudson, what is your question?
It's kind of a little connection to that, but like if you're just like waiting for your baggage and you have a low blood sugar and your bag has all the low treatments and what are you gonna do?
That's a good question. What do you think? What would you do?
I mean, sometimes I carry glucose tablets in my pocket.
That's what you're gonna do.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Carry one in your pocket just in case.
Good idea. So, in all this conversation, one thing that I have reflected on is right after I was diagnosed, my brother got married. And I went home to his wedding and went back to New York and was sitting with my diabetes educator. We're going over my numbers. And she saw that my blood sugars were in the 300s during the wedding. And someone who, being older, my blood sugars tend to not go into the 300s very often. So she said to me, Brendan, I see your blood sugars went into the 300s during the wedding. That's really good. You're going to have diabetes your entire life. When you go to a wedding, have fun. Don't worry about your numbers. Don't go low. Try not to. But you have to enjoy your life. And having some high blood sugars is fine. Enjoy your life. And I think in travel, you do cool things. You go scuba diving. You eat new foods. You go camping. These are the best times of life, and I think it's important that I don't let diabetes take those things away. It's okay to be a little higher than I normally would. But anyway, that's something that I've been kind of reflecting on throughout tonight. But thank you, everybody, for coming. This has been so wonderful to have this conversation, and thank you for all your great insights.